Okay, hello everybody. Back with another battle report. Just another small one. Still waiting on the rest of the Bretonians to come in, but still wanting to shake the cobwebs off and get some more games under the belt. So playing another small game, just 1,000 points, and this time we're up against some dwarfs. And the tagline for this one is "Overruns are a thing," which will become more apparent as to why a little bit later on. So getting into deployment then, my opponent playing dwarves here, sort of castled up in a corner, which is quite the dwarf thing to do, which is fine. He's got a big unit of dwarf warriors with great weapons. I can't remember how many was there, like 38 or 40, something like that. It's basically a big old horde. On the front left-hand corner, as we're looking at it, there's a runesmith. And he had 2 runes for spell breaking, and I think a great weapon. I don't know if he had any other equipment or not. It didn't really come into play other than the runes of spell breaking. And then on the front right hand corner, as we're looking at it, there's a Thane with a great weapon. And again, I don't know if he had any other equipment. If you did, it didn't really come into play at any point. And then you've got a unit of 12 the quarrelers. Whatever, the dwarfs with crossbows, whatever they're called, and then he's got an organ gun there on the right hand side. So to counter deploy, I've gone pretty much straight across from him in the same corner. So we're on a 6-foot board, but we're playing in like a sort of 2-foot segment of it on the left hand side, which is quite funny. But on the right hand side there, I've got the Peg Knights. Their job is to go as fast as they can forward and chase down that organ gun and get that off the table. In the middle there, I've got my bus of Errant Knights, again, 12 of them, and I've gone for a bit of a different character loadout for the Lord, just trying something a bit different to the usual sort of heroic kill and blow Lord that I would normally take, that most people would normally take. So I'm just going for the Virtue of Knightly Temper with a 1-up reroll, just to see if I can crank out some damage on him. And at these small points levels, you kind of get the flexibility like this to try out some different things and some new ideas. So this isn't a Lord I would probably take for the most part, but I'm just trying out something new. So it's a Lord, Virtue of Knightly Temper with a lance, 1-up reroll, and he had the Potion of Foolhardiness as well, just to give him that 1 extra attack on the turn it matters. BSB with a standard loadout, just a 1-up reroll, no other equipment, and then I've got a level 2 sitting in the middle of the unit there, and she's rocking beasts, and for spells she rolled up Wissons and Amber Spear, so pretty nice couple of spells. And then on the left hand side we've got the unit of peasant bowmen, and I had the points this time around to give them full command, so I did so. Of course, Ray and the dwarfs go first, don't really do anything at all, they just sit in the back corner. Because this is the vanguard move from the Peg Knights, they just move up and stay just outside of the range of the organ gun, so they doesn't get 1 turn of free shooting at them. So they're 24.1 inches away, whatever. So not going to get shot turn 1. I'm going to have to weather 1 turn of shooting on turn 2, but then hopefully I can, if I don't take any casualties and panic away, I'll be able to chase down that organ gun and get it off the table. So as we said, the dwarfs don't do any movement, they just sit happily in their back corner. The organ gun's not really got range to anything, so it's just going to sit there and not shoot this turn. The quarrelers take dots into the into the peasant bowman and kill 3, so not a bad round of shooting. But let's go into Bretonnian turn 1 then, and we push up quite aggressively like this. So the peasant bowmen don't move anywhere. I'm going to try and shoot back at the quarrelers and see if we can exchange some blows. The knight bus in the middle, I literally just push that pretty much as far forward as I can go with it. I'm just outside of half range of the organ gun, so if it wants to go after the knights, it's at least going to be -1 for long range. But I am within pretty easy charge range of anything else. Not really wanting to go into the face of that massive dwarf horde with great weapons, particularly when I've got to go through the forest and take the danger terrain tests. But with my sort of narrow frontage, I can cut down a lot of attacks that come back at me, and then I can get one of my characters in a challenge maybe and limit the frontage. So it's a fight that we're both not sure about. I don't really want to go in there. He doesn't really want to come at me, so I can get in there. It's one of those fights that might come down to a coin flip. If I can get a decent charge off, I'll probably break the unit. If I don't, then he grinds me down and I lose, because Errant Knights are terrible when they don't charge. And on the right hand side, the Peg Knights, as we said before, they just rush as far forward as they can. I'm outside of the arc of sight of the crossbows, so if they want to shoot me, they're going to have to turn and take the penalty. But if not, the organ gun's probably just going to chuck a load of shots into them, and I'm hoping that if I do take a panic, that I pass the panic. I've got the BSB there and the and the Lord, so we should be okay, hopefully. In the magic phase, then I go ahead and I throw out. I get like 11 dice. I get a massive magic phase the first time round, which is funny with just a level 2. But I go and I chuck like 4 or 5 dice at Wissons, just with the thought being that if I do take a lot of damage to the errant unit from the organ gun and the quarrelers, I'm going to be toughness 4 instead of 3, which is going to help. But he uses his rune of spell breaking, dispels it, and then destroys the spell. So now I'm stuck with that spear, which I do cast at the organ gun, and only do a single wound, which is disappointing. But fortunately, I don't miscast for it. I did throw 6 dice at it. But yeah, so not an eventful magic phase, other than I lost probably the most important spell that that I had. Now I really don't want to go into that unit of Great Weapon Dwarfs at all, because Wissons would have helped. Again, taking wounds on 3s rather than 2s, and wounding on 2s rather than 3s makes a huge difference. So if I could have got in there with Wissons, I would have been pretty confident. Without Wissons, yeah, less so. Into Dwarfs turn 2 then. So again, there's not really much going on the Dwarf side. He really has no inclination to rush forward out of the corner with his dwarf warriors with the great weapons. However, he is sat in the forest now, and as we sort of pointed out later on in the game, that's actually a bad position for him, more so than me. Because if I charge in there, like my front rank is going to be taking dangerous terrain, which is only 3 models, but he's not steadfast. So if I can get in there, win combat. When he's in horde formation, I'm probably going to outrank him, unless something weird happens. Anyway, but even still, yeah, losing steadfast in the forest is a bad spot. And as we suspected, the organ gun just turns to shoot at the Peg Knights. The quarrelers go ahead and plink off 1 more peasant bowman. And then the organ gun has a really disappointing round of shooting. So it rolls up a decent number of shots, like 12 or 14, something like that. I think it was 12. Good number of shots. But then between rolling to hit, like against the skirmishers, and he needs like 5s to hit or whatever, and then I've got a decent armor save, and I've got the blessing. I get pretty lucky on the blessing rolls. I only take a single wound, so it was quite disappointing. From the perspective of the dwarf player, probably should have got a little bit more, and I got quite lucky. But now it means that I get a really easy charge into the organ gun, and then I can overrun into the crossbowman, which is why the video title comes into play, because my opponent is a quite avid Kings of War player, where he tells me that sort of overruns isn't really a thing, so he hadn't even really thought about me being able to kill the organ gun and then get a very, very easy overrun into his crossbows as well. So that's what the Bretonnia turn 2 looks like. I go ahead and I do charge the Peg Knight straight into the face of the organ gun, which is very, very nice. And I did contemplate for a while, back and forth, about charging the knights in, and in the end I just decided I would wait for the Peg Knights to get in there, get rid of the organ gun, do some damage to the crossbows, and then sort of see where we are in the following turn. So we're just, I moved up a little bit. Again, I'm just posturing up against that big horde of warriors, but we'll see what happens. Magic and shooting phase, nothing really happens. So there's not really a picture of anything there. I think the only spell I've got is Amber Spear. The only thing I can really cast it at is into the Dwarf Warriors or the crossbows, and to do so, I'm pretty much going to have to throw 6 dice at it because it's the only spell I've got, and it wasn't worth the miscast, so I just didn't bother. In the combat phase, as quite predictable, the Peg Knights kill the organ gun and then get the really easy overrun into the flanked crossbows. So not a good place to be if you're a crossbowman. So into Dwarf turn 3 then, he hasn't really got much to do, and he sort of takes the view of oh, you have to forgive me, really hoarse throat at the minute. He just takes the view of that sitting back isn't really doing him any good. We're going to have to take the fight at some point, so he's just pushing forward, and we're just going to see what happens now. So now the ball is well and truly in my court now to take that charge and see what happens. So there's no shooting phase, no magic phase, so the game's going quite quickly. In the combat phase then, I kill a bunch of the crossbows, but I think he was steadfast by he literally had 5 models, so he was steadfast and he stuck, I think. He may not have been steadfast, whatever it was, he didn't do any wounds to me, I did some to him, and he stuck. So the Peg Knights and crossbows are going to fight for another round. So into Bretonnia turn 3 then, I just decide to hell with it, let's just charge in and see what happens. So I charge in such a way that I plan on taking a challenge with the BSB. If he accepts, then one of his characters is going to move across and then block off a whole load of attacks from the unit into my unit. So basically, it's going to really restrict the amount of damage you can put into the unit at all. And it's also pretty much going to guarantee that one of my characters survives. Now, this unit, at the time I didn't realise, but the runesmith gives them armor piercing, so they're actually strength 5 armor piercing, which is really going to shred some armor. And my 1-up rerollables aren't really going to last probably as long as I thought they might do in this situation. So I'm hoping to get lucky, but I'm going to go first. We're going to see how much damage we can do. But it's pretty much going to come down to this combat. Like if I can get a decent charge, not take any damage or not take much damage, do enough to him, then I'm going to break him, and that's pretty much the game. So, so we do go ahead and we get into a challenge. BSB issues a challenge, and the Thane moves over. I think they exchange a wound each. The Bretonnian Lord really whiffs, so he drinks his potion of foolhardiness. So he's got 5 attacks. I think he hits 3 out of the 5, which is a bit sad. But then on his rolls to wound, he rolls 2 1s and a 2, so he gets 1 wound, 1 extra attack, which does do another wound. But what could have been 6 or 7 wounds was only 3, so it's quite disappointing, but it is what it is. The rest of the unit do okay and kill a bunch of dwarfs, and then the great weapons swing and just do literally nothing. So I lose just the champion, don't take any wounds on the Lord, I don't think I take any wounds on the BSB. But basically what happens is, we lose 1 guy, we do a bunch of wounds, win the combat, he's not steadfast, break him, run the unit down, and that's pretty much the game. So really short one, and I nearly didn't bother making the report, but there's a few interesting things to talk about. One being that, a big part of the game came down to, I suppose, a confusion amongst different game systems. So I say my opponents used to play Warhammer 8th edition years and years ago, but has been massively playing Kings of War recently, and I suppose a misunderstanding of some of the key rules like overruns and things like that obviously played a massive part in the game going the way it did. It's also a testament to how surprisingly resilient Bretonnia units can be with the narrow frontage and the characters in the front. When you look at like the rerollable armor saves and the challenge shenanigans you can throw in there, the unit just takes no damage. So if you can do enough damage on there with the ranks, you usually outrank them. It does show how it doesn't take that special of a scenario to be able to charge into the face of a horde of great weapons with armor piercing and actually break the unit. What we talked about after the game is he probably should have been in bus formation. Whilst it's tempting to go horde formation to get all the extra attacks in there, especially when with the great weapons, the armor piercing, on the face of it, it looks like a really good idea. But my frontage is so narrow compared to the horde. The majority of attacks that you would be getting from a horde, you just lose and they're just wasted. Now, had he have been in bus formation, I win combat. He's steadfast on a 9 or a 10 with a reroll. I think it's a 10. Yeah, I think Vane's a 10. The Dwarfs have got good leadership, right? So he's steadfast 10. No reroll though, because I don't think he had a BSB anywhere. So steadfast 10, which is more than passable. And at that point, then I just don't win combat ever again. The Lord, when he's not on the charge, is pretty terrible. The BSB is pretty terrible because he can't take a lance. And then the Knights Errant are just terrible. It's just a bunch of strength 3, which, it's toughness 4. They've got armor saves. His great weapons then. Now the champion's dead, he can start chomping through the unit. And then he grinds me down to nothing and wins. So bus formation was definitely the way to go. Which pretty much say we sort of talked about and agreed after the fact. But so yeah, it's pretty convincing and resounding tabling for the Bretonnians, but at such low points values, it's these things swing back and forth really, really quickly. But again, it's really, really nice to be able to play some square bases again. I'm just looking forward to the rest of the Bretonnians coming in, so I can get them built up and play some full-size games. As you can see there, I've started working on the bases. Got these first batch of guys all sprayed up and some paint on the Lord there. Getting back into doing the checkerboard pattern, starting on just the small shield areas before I start thinking about doing a full horse coat in the checkerboard pattern and go whole hog for it. So yeah, it's a good fun game. It's just good to be playing squares. It's quite a short report, but there we go. So see you on the next one. Thanks, guys.